The Kings bust out of their scoring slump quickly in Vancouver. We've got the details, and it's a Kings Fan Feedback Friday on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. It is a Kings Fan Feedback Friday, your chance to sound off, critique, praise, complain, celebrate our LA Kings. We do it every Friday, off-season, regular season, postseason. But before we get to your emails, the Kings played a game on Friday in Vancouver against the Canucks. It was game 4 of their 5-game road trip. LA looking to get back on track offensively after scoring only 1 goal in their last 2 games, that last game being a 1-0 loss to the Oilers in Edmonton on Monday. As for the Kings lineup in this one, there was an injury that affected the usual lineup. Top line of Anze Kopitar, Adrian Kempe, Alex Turcotte remained unchanged. But the second line, kind of the shutdown line of late for the Kings, Quinton Byfield would center with Tanner Jeannot and Warren Foegele. Jeannot moving up to that second line on that kind of a more defensive-minded line. Trevor Moore would be on the third line with Phillip Danault and Kevin Fiala. And Samuel Hellenius would be inserted into the lineup. He would be on the wing with Trevor Lewis playing the center position, and we would have the extra forward rotating amongst the other forwards with that 11-7 setup. The defensive setup was the same. Mikey Anderson with Vladislav Gavrikov on the top pairing, Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark the second pairing, the third pairing of Jacob Moverard, Jordan Spence, and Kyle Burrows was the extra defenseman. Darcy Kemper would get the start at net, and David Riddick was the backup. So the big question for me coming into this game, would the Kings find some offense while maintaining the defense that they've played over the last couple of games? Just 3 goals allowed in 2 games. So need some more offense, but keep that same defense. Well, the game summary in this one, LA would jump out to an early 3-0 lead in the first 10 minutes. 2 of the goals scored by Alex Turcotte, the other by Adrian Kempe. And the Kings have put that scoring slump quickly behind them. Vancouver was looking to regroup. They called a timeout and did seem to find their game afterwards. Second period, Vancouver would get on the board with their first goal of the game to make it 3-1. But Kevin Fiala would respond a minute later with a power play goal of sorts. And LA would reclaim or repossess a 3-goal advantage. In the final period, Warren Foegele would find a loose puck at the side of the net and put it in to ice the game for the LA Kings as they skate off with a convincing 5-1 victory. Kings improved to 25-12-5 on the year. They snap a 2-game skid. LA has only lost 3 in a row once, and that was very early in the season. Kings moved to 2-2 on this current 5-game road trip. Unfortunately, the Kings still remain 6 points behind Edmonton for second place in the Pacific because, of course, the Oilers rallied for a big comeback win against the Colorado Avalanche on Thursday night. As for the game stats in this one, for the Kings and Canucks, shots on goal was dead even at 21 apiece. Power play, LA 1 for 3, while Vancouver was 0 for 5. So special teams, a big story in this one. Faceoffs favored LA 35-29. Hits favored Vancouver 22-12. Block shots favored LA 17-12. So what was good from a team standpoint for the LA Kings? Well, obviously a great start, 3 goals in the first 10 minutes, completely putting that scoring slump behind them immediately. Penalty kill was exceptional. Kings killing off all 5 Vancouver power plays. It was more like 4, actually, because the Canucks took a penalty right after the Kings had taken a penalty, so that canceled one of them out. But there were 2 back-to-back power plays. I mean, really close back-to-back power plays in the first period after the Kings had a 3-0 lead. And it gave Vancouver a chance to get back in the game. But not only did the Kings easily kill off both those power plays, Vancouver didn't even get a shot on goal. So again, the the penalty kill was exceptional for the Kings. The all-around defensive game, very strong. We talked about them maintaining that, only giving up 1 goal in the game. The Kings, they only give up, they give up less than 3 goals per game. So when they had a 3-0 lead, Pretty good idea they weren't going to let this one slip away. As far as what was not so good for the Kings from a team standpoint, well, never a good idea to give your opponent 5 power play opportunities. Again, credit the Kings PK, but you don't want to make a habit, obviously, of taking that many penalties and giving your opponent chances like that. After the great start, the Kings, I don't know if they took their foot off the gas. You can certainly understand them being a little bit more defensive minded the rest of the game, but Vancouver after that did kind of do a pretty good job. It was kind of an even game for the most part. But the Kings, I guess it's not realistic that they were going to maintain that hot start, and they're not going to score 3 goals every 10 minutes of the game. But overall, my big takeaway though from this game, I mean, great to see the Kings turn the page very quickly from all the talk about this offensive slump. Went out and took care of business. They didn't let the last couple of games affect how they played in this game. Turn the page, move on to the next game. That's exactly what they did, and it kind of felt like the Kings needed this one after losing those 2 games against an opponent that is struggling right now. The Kings needed to take advantage of that, and they absolutely did. Let's talk about some of the individuals that shine for the Kings. We always talk about the goaltender, and Darcy Kemper was exceptional once again. Stopped 20 of 21 shots. Now, the goal that he did allow wasn't a great goal. Quinn Hughes is an exceptional defenseman for the Canucks, but he shot it from way out, and Kemper saw it all the way. He wasn't screened. So that one was not a great goal, frankly. But other than that, Kemper was, again, very, very good. Raised his save percentage to .924 on the season, lowered his goals against average to 2.06. I did see on X that Sleeper Hockey posted that Kemper's save percentage in January is .971. His goals against average is 0.80. And that's in those last 5 starts. Overall, 13-3-5 for Darcy Kemper. Alex Turcotte had a career night, the rookie forward, scoring 2 goals in this one and also getting an assist. The first goal he scored was just a tap-in goal, but good job by him by going strong to the net to be in position to tap that goal in. The second goal, he's going to the net as Kevin Fiala shoots it from some distance. There's a rebound with some traffic in front. Philip Deneau is in front, and he puts in the rebound. So always a good job to put pucks on net and go to the net. And his assist was probably his most impressive play. Anze Kopitar batting the puck towards him as he goes to the net. He was too far behind the net to get a shot off, so he makes a blind behind the back pass through the crease to Adrian Kempe, who puts it home. So a very, very important game and an impressive game for Alex Turcotte. Now has 7 goals and 19 points on his rookie season. Last 16 games, he has 5 goals and 11 points. Just great to see the former first-round pick staying healthy and getting a chance to show what he can do. I'm sure his struggles early in his career has made him appreciate this opportunity, and I'm sure he's pretty hungry to be able to show the kind of player that he really is, and really looking forward to seeing what Alex Turcotte does over the second half of this season. Adrian Kempe really showed all the tools in his toolbox in this one, made a great defensive steal, passed the puck to himself off the boards, shoots around a defender. This is the first goal of the game. Then he showed great patience, waiting to the last possible second to pass it through a defender right on the tape of Alex Turcotte for the tap-in goal. Turcotte gets the glory, but Kempe absolutely made that happen. And if you're a lip reader, you saw Alex Turcotte say multiple times, "What an effing pass." And it was. Of course, Turcotte did return the favor to Kempe, but he made a very possible difficult play look easy as he got the pass, went right around the goaltender Thatcher Demko and put it into the net. That wasn't as easy as he made it look. Gets his team leading 21st goal of the season, also getting his 41st point of the year. He's now tied as Adrian Kempe with Anze Kopitar for the LA Kings point lead. I thought Vladislav Gavrikov was the Kings' first half MVP, but Adrian Kempe was not far behind. Kevin Fiala shaved off his mustache, looking for a clean start to the second half of the season, and maybe that was the key, but he played good in this one. I like how in this game he was looking to be creative and make moves to get his shot off, not to try and make a fancy pass. And he had the shot on goal that led to the rebound to the Turcotte second goal, and then he scored to make it 4-1 after Vancouver scored just about a minute exactly after that. Head coach Jim Hiller called it the biggest goal of the game, and it gave the Kings back that 3-goal cushion and kind of really demoralized the Canucks after they had just scored and he comes back and scores. It was a power play goal, but not typically It was a 2-on-1 with Trevor Moore. It wasn't like the Kings set it up, worked it around, and scored a power play goal. It was on an odd man rush. So, yes, it was a power play goal, but it wasn't your typical power play goal. Kyle Burroughs, I did want to mention this. Very cool move by head coach Jim Hiller to get Kyle Burroughs on the ice as a forward in the final moments of this game on a late power play. That kind of thing goes a long way with a player and with a team. Burroughs, defensive defenseman, rarely plays on the power play, much less at the forward position. So why did Jim Hiller do it? Well, Kyle Burroughs is a Vancouver native. He had a lot of friends and family on hand to see him, and certainly all the teammates got a kick out of it, and certainly his friends and family got a special fun moment for Kyle Burroughs going back home, and that was really cool of Jim Hiller to do that for him. So great job by Jim Hiller doing little things that are important to a locker room and important to a player. We want to give out our 3 stars of the game. And Kevin Fiala was the third star announced at the arena. And he certainly could have been the 3rd star. He played very well. But I'm going to go with Darcy Kemper. I just thought after the Canucks called that timeout to kind of regroup, that they had a pretty strong push, and he had to make some key saves to keep that nice cushion for the Kings as an advantage for them. Adrian Kempe could have been the number 1 star. I'm going to go with the number 2 star, though, even though he had a hell of a game. But you got to go with Alex Turcotte, the career night for the rookie, 2 big goals and the nice assist. So again, Darcy Kemper, the 3rd star, Adrian Kempe, my 2nd star, and the number 1 star in the win over the Canucks is Alex Turcotte. All right, Kings fans, it's time to get your emails. We've got a lot of them. We're going to try and get to all of them. And there's talk about Drew Doughty's return and what it means to the Kings. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL playoffs are here, and it's time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's number 1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up W. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also, you can bet on who will score the first touchdown, how many points a team will score, and so much more. The LA Rams, who Ed and Brea guaranteed would lose last week, did in fact win, and they'll be facing the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. Rams are getting 6.5 points. I actually think they'll win that game outright. The over-under is at 43.5. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's get to your emails. And I do want to give a quick special shout out to Carlos in Mexico City, big Kings fan. He's recovering from heart surgery. So Carlos, on behalf of all Kings fans, we are wishing you the best in your recovery and hope we get an email from you here very soon. All right, let's get to your emails. And I did have to edit some of them down for time so we can try and get them all in, which I'm going to try and do my best. Our first email comes from Don in North Hollywood, says he's an everydayer. Thank you, Don. He says, number 1, our D is presently playing extremely well, as is. Number 2, our forwards are not scoring enough, and the Kings lack a dangerous right shot on the power play. Perhaps when Drew Doughty returns, the team could try him out as a 4th-line right winger and move him around as needed during games to add skill and a dangerous right-handed shot of the forward lines. As a right shooter, Drew could play on the left side of the power play, giving us an effective offside shot on that side, maybe even with one-timers. This is something the Kings have lacked since Arvidsson left. Of course, Drew is mainly a D-man and should be worked back into his best spot over there after a number of games while playing valuable minutes at forward when the team needs his offense. But the team could do it more gradually, upsetting any chemistry as little as possible. Drew has that supreme level of hockey sense needed to pull off something like this. Brent Burns played forward for a season or 2 with San Jose. Scotty Bowman used defenseman Rick Cartraw as a forward back in the 70s with Montreal. Why not try it at least? Of course, Drew would have to like it. He might hate it. Who knows? What do you think, Eddie? And again, that was Don in North Hollywood. Somebody had mentioned a few weeks ago, I don't think it was you, Don, about moving Jordan Spence to forward. You might remember Dustin Byfuglien was a guy who was another player who fairly recently played defense and forward as well. I think Drew would hate it. I do not think he would want to do that. I can't see Jim Hiller doing it, even though he is certainly a guy who does think outside the box. Drew's not really an offensive defenseman. He can score. He had 15 goals last year, which was a career high for him. I definitely give you credit for thinking outside the box, Don. If you wanted to use Drew differently on the power play, maybe because he's a right-handed shot, I'd be willing to listen to that, but I just don't see the Kings trying to put Drew Doughty as a forward. I don't imagine that happening. But again, outside the box thinking for sure. Mason in Arizona says Drew Doughty is expected to start skating again early by next week. He's actually already skating. Next week, he's supposed to join the team in practice. He's been skating on his own. He says the Kings are looking phenomenal, and if Drew Doughty gets healthy, what does this mean for the team? I always say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Drew is an amazing veteran who will most likely help a lot. But if we're doing this well, is it worth the risk? Go Kings, go. That was Mason in Arizona. Yes, the top pairing of Vladislav Gavrikov and Mike Anderson has been great. I think, though, Drew Doughty's return can make the Kings even better. You put Drew back on the top pairing with Mikey Anderson. Gabby goes to the second pairing. Joel Edmondson moves down to the third pairing. Or if you wanted to, you could put Drew on the second pairing, keep Gavrikov and Anderson the same. You move Brant Clark down to the third pairing on the right side, and you make Jordan Spence the extra defenseman if you're going to stay with the 11-7. So either way, I really think that, and then Gavrikov would go on the second pairing, and then Joel Edmondson would move down to the third pairing. And then if you wanted, maybe you could use Jacob Moverar as the extra defenseman. But anyway, I think Drew coming back is going to help the Kings. I don't see it as a problem, but how they handle it specifically is going to be interesting to see. Robert in Hawthorne says, do you think Jim Hiller should be playing Samuel Helenius and Andre Lee, those big body young players, and give Trevor Lewis some nights off? I think that's fair, Robert, but I also think that the Kings, I think we're all learning what this defense is doing is special, and I think that Jim Hiller feels very comfortable with the defensive game that Trevor Lewis gives him, also is good on the penalty kill as well, and Samuel Helenius and Andre Lee don't give you that. So, yeah, Trevor Lewis isn't much of an offensive threat, but he is a valuable defensive player. But that said, I would like to see Jim Hiller, and I've talked about this all year, have more of a rotation on that fourth line with Lewis, Akil Thomas, Samuel Helenius, and Andre Lee. If he's still up with the team, when Drew Doughty comes back, there's going to have to be a roster move made. But I'd like to see those guys just kind of rotate in and just keep everybody kind of in the action. Brian in Los Alamitos says, what do you think of Jesse Cohen's take on why the Kings' power play is so bad? He believes that because the Kings play such an effective and stifling form of team defense, it becomes exhausting during the course of a game. Therefore, when the team has a power play, the 2 minutes are utilized as a short period of rest rather than as an opportunity to score. Not to say that the team's strategy devised by the coaches, or not to say that is a team strategy devised by the coaches, it's not, but maybe just more of a mental thing like, okay, we can relax from an all-out defensive play for at least a couple of minutes. As a result, the team is not focused on scoring. This is not an excuse, but maybe more of a reason for the Kings' power play deficiencies. I think Jesse may be onto something. Thanks for another great week of shows. Go Kings, go. And again, that was Brian in Los Alamitos. I kind of hear where Jesse's coming from on this. I think he may be onto something, but not because they're looking to rest. I just think when you play that aggressive defensive style, you're in your face of your opponent constantly, and you're working so hard and you're skating, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. Once you get on a power play, you're kind of floating around and you're passing the puck, and it's not that kind of, frantic style. And maybe that not that they're resting, but that it's a mindset that now that we're kind of more, I don't want to say relaxed, but not as frenzied and energetic and constantly moving, maybe that kind of takes them out of their mode a little bit. I think that could be something. Dave in Seattle says, just got out of the game in Vancouver. What a game. Nice to see the team get back in the win column. I can't argue with the results of the 11-7, but I'm not a fan of it on back-to-backs like in the Calgary game. Team looked tired and played it almost like a scheduled loss. Played better against Edmonton and finally unloaded against Vancouver. I'll be in Seattle Saturday. Hopefully they can keep up the strong play and finish this trip with another win. A couple other notes. Trevor Moore looks really frustrated on the ice, probably gripping the stick too tight, as they say. Hopefully that line can get back to playing as a strong unit. Power play looks better when they treat it like a 5-on-5 and just skate. When they stand still and just try to move the puck, it looks pathetic. Darcy Kemper's playing like a top-tier NHL goalie. It's great to see. Bring on Edmonton for a 4th straight year. All it takes is belief that the Kings can beat them. This team is starting to believe. And again, that was Dave in Seattle. See, I like what Dave said, and I agree with that. And I think that kind of goes into the theory of what maybe Jesse was kind of getting to. that the Kings, they need to actually treat the power play more like it's 5-on-5. Attack the net, attack the net, attack the net. Don't pass it around. Don't look for the great setup. Be more aggressive. And so I think his example of treating it like a 5-on-5 actually makes a lot of sense. All right, up next, we're going to talk about potential trades for the Kings. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us who live in Southern California, so lucky we've got a place where we live where we can see so many things, live sporting events, theater events, concerts, comedy shows, you name it, we've got it here in the area. And no matter where you want to go, what you want to see, for your ticket needs, you need to use Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The all-in pricing feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, and you'll get the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, let's get back to your emails. Arturo in Long Beach says he's an everydayer and a Puck Podcast supporter. God bless you, Arturo. He says, what if the Kings don't re-sign Gavrikov? I feel like we have plenty of good defensemen to need to sign another defensive defenseman. Use the cap space to get a Mitch Marner or Mikko Rantanen. I'm really tired of hearing that the Kings are the best defensive team in the league. We're not going to win the cup with just defense. We need offense to offset it. What are your thoughts? And again, that was Arturo in Long Beach. Well, first off, Arturo, I will disagree with you. I love hearing that the Kings are the best defensive team in the league. It's great to be the best at something in the NHL. I know it's not as sexy as being the best offensive team. The old cliche, though, is defense wins championships. We'll see. I get what you're saying about needing a little bit more offense. But I love hearing that we're the best defensive team in the league. I really think the Kings are tough to play against. Teams don't want to play against us. And that's because we play such good defense. Look, if Gavrikov isn't re-signed and the Kings want to add offense in the offseason and not look to fill a hole defensively, I think Joel Edmondson could move up to the second pairing. Jacob Movarar can move up to the third pairing. And I think we'd be okay. Would we be as good defensively? No, but I think they could get by. Guys like Mitch Marner and Mikko Rantanen are not realistic targets. We can't afford them. I think it's also probably moot. I think the Leafs and the Avs are going to re-sign those guys. They're just too good not to re-sign. Maybe a guy like Brock Besser in Vancouver is a realistic target. He's a UFA after the season, right-handed shot, relatively young. He's still in his 20s. So maybe that's a name to look for rather than the I'm not saying it's not great to shoot for the highest star, but I don't know that it's realistic to try and get one of those guys. Jack checks in. He does not give us his location. He says, hey, Eddie, I'm an everyday listener and first-time emailer. I just wanted to write in to say that this team is closer than most fans think. I get so frustrated listening to the burn it all down and fire everyone crowd after one or two losses. The reality is this team is 12 games above 500 and tracking to make the playoffs. Adding a scoring winger who can play with Byfield and Fogle would make the team a challenge to anyone in a 7-game series. Chris Kreider or Kyle Palmieri would fit the bill. Lastly, I would love to see Jim Hiller try a line of Alex Turcotte and Kevin Fiala. Kevin played his best hockey with Blake Lizotte, a player of similar consistent high effort and solid all-around play. And maybe Turcotte gets a chance to help unlock his offense. And that from Jack, that was sent before the last game where Turcotte had his 2 goals. Jackie, thanks for the first time email. I hope it won't be your last email. If you do email again, let us know where you're from, because I really like to know that. I would say, to me, this Kings team is the toughest team for other opponents to play against since those cup teams that we've had. I think the defense and the goaltending is better than it has been, and we're going to be in every game. They just need enough offense. That's why it's so important for Kevin Fiala's and Trevor Moore's and Quentin Byfield's to just chip in a little bit more offensively, or for the Kings to improve, I don't want to say dramatically, but at least decently on the power play. So if that happens, this Kings team, I think, could be a challenge for any team. I have heard, you mentioned Kyle Palmieri. I've heard his name a lot. So we'll see. He seems like a reasonable target. I will say that. Gollum checks in on X. He says he's the chief of the Midwest. What a title. He says, who can LA afford to part with and get a solid return on? In my opinion, it's going to take a package of players and picks plus some third-party involvement to make it all cap compliant, and I don't see much reason to believe that a deadline deal is happening. Maybe others see it differently, and who, I'd like to hear, goes and how does it stay cap compliant? That's Gollum somewhere in the Midwest. And he's right. It is very easy to make these kind of fantasy trades, but it has to work within the constraints of the salary cap. You got to stay cap compliant. So unless Kevin Fiala is frustrated playing on a third line and wants to waive his no movement clause, I don't know who else the Kings could realistically move and get some kind of like impact player in return. Fiala's making $7.8 million. If they could move that contract, they could bring in somebody who's high quality, maybe a little more consistent, maybe a little bit more of not of a defensive liability, but that's the only thing I could see. I don't think Kevin Fiala wants that. I think he likes it in LA. I think he's fine with his role. So I don't think that's going to happen. Again, if the Kings make a deal, it's going to be something small to kind of supplement this roster. Andy in Guelph up in Canada says, I am so pleased with the Kings' consistency. They need scoring. Doughty's return will be good, and I'm currently only seeing one glaring hole. It's one that's obvious to all of us, a right-handed scoring winger. We need someone elite. I expect the Kings to make a modest move for a scoring winger, but come the offseason, I want to see them aggressive again. I do like Fiala, however, perhaps he could be used in combination with picks or Thomas to acquire an upgrade. Either way, I'm super pleased with the season. What do you think about Blake? Does he get an extension despite the playoff performance? I think that could go either way. And again, that was from Andy in Guelph up in Canada. We've talked about the trade, and Fiala does have the no movement clause, so it's up to him whether he wants to go or not. If the Kings lose again in the first round of the playoffs, I don't think Rob Blake gets an extension. We had Keith Freeze on from the Hockey News, and he floated this out, and I thought it made a lot of sense. He could see if that were to happen, Rob Blake stays in the front office, but is kind of relieved of his GM duties, given him president of hockey operations. So he's still in the front office. He still has a role. He's still, a coveted, former great player who I think the organization likes a lot of the things he's done, but probably need a new voice as a general manager going forward. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Chris in Carson City, Nevada says, my wife and I made the trip to Vancouver for the game. Within the first minute, the Kings took the crowd out of the game, and by halfway through the first, the crowd was dead since the Kings put 3 up early. We're also catching the game tomorrow in Seattle, so hopefully another strong showing. The team is defensively in midseason form and only looks to get better with Doughty skating. As long as we stay healthy, the Kings can compete with anyone. Maybe around the trade deadline, Rob Blake can get some help on the power play and more depth scoring. Loved the roundtable show the other day. You have been killing it with your weekly special guest shows. Keep up the great work. Go Kings go. Chris in Carson City. Thank you very much, Chris. You should meet up with Dave. Dave in Seattle is going to be at that game as well. So I don't know if you guys can make that happen, but a Locked on LA Kings fan meetup between Chris and Dave at the Kraken game on Saturday. Make that happen. Nick in Manitoba says, I was recently at the Kings Jets game. We got a lot of listeners going to road games. That's awesome. He says, here in Winnipeg, wanted to express how excited I am with a few things. I thought our defensive game looked sharp and, dare I say it, possibly better this season than prior years. Even without Doughty, we look sharp and aggressive, especially when it comes to shutting down the passing lanes and forcing pucks to the outside. I take a lot of pride in our defensive game, and I'm excited to see the young guys like Q and Clark accept the challenge of playing this type of hockey going forward. For me, though, the most exciting part was watching Byfield. Wow. To watch him on TV does not compete or do justice to watching him live. His hustle is excellent, speed is explosive, and the way he moves in every zone is exciting. After watching, however, it is clear to me that it's only a matter of time before he explodes and the practice or the patience will pay off. Lastly, I want to say how disappointed Kevin Fiala has been to watch this year. I wonder sometimes if shopping him at the deadline would make sense. I would rather see him stay and produce, but there are times when I question if he's truly the best fit for this Kings team. Regardless, looking forward to seeing how the Kings do in the second half of the season and excited for the future of Kings hockey. Go Kings go. And that was Nick in Manitoba. Nick, agree with you 100% on Quentin Byfield. The only thing I'd like to see Q do a little bit more is he's got that hustle, he's got that speed, but just go stronger and harder to the net on occasion. As for Kevin Fiala, I think we all know he needs to be better. He has been too inconsistent, but I think we saw in the Vancouver game what type of contributor he can be. He's one of the few guys on the Kings that can create his own shot, and he is one of the more dynamic offensive players the Kings have. So you don't want to give up on a guy like that, but he definitely does need to be better. We all know that. You talked about how the guys have bought into playing defense. It does seem to me when I watch this team that the Kings really like playing defense. Like it's something that they take pride in too. I think our final email has got to be from Darren in OC in Orange County. He says, why does the NHL refuse to penalize the Oilers? It was bad enough to see what McDavid got away with Monday against the Kings, but then I see he gave a Minnesota player a cheap shot with no penalty. The guy's now concussed, and Draisaitl gives a high stick to Drouin and leaves the game. I'm really tired of the refs in the NHL giving the Oilers carte blanche on getting away with murder on the ice. What are your thoughts? It's not an equal way the league treats them, and that was Darren in the OC. Darren, I'll be honest with you. I don't watch enough of the Oilers games to know if they're like the Kansas City Chiefs of the NHL, that they get all these calls or perceived to get all these calls from the referees. Certainly the high stick that McDavid had on Gavrikov was a big missed call. I wasn't as upset about the hit on Laferriere, but the elbow he had to the player on Minnesota was something that should have absolutely at least drawn a fine on McDavid. So he's been in the spotlight recently for sure. And the league has let him get away with a couple of things for sure. But as far as this being, some league conspiracy about giving them preferential treatment, I don't know about that. I do think that all leagues do give their star players some preferential treatment. I think protecting them from stuff. But as far as, there shouldn't be a double standard where guys like McDavid and Draisaitl also get away with things while being protected as well. Ed and Brea, I love you, but we don't have time for you this week. But I can't believe the only player he gave an A grade to was Kempe. Kopitar doesn't get an A. Kemper doesn't get an A. Gavrikov doesn't get an A. Ed and Brea is a tough grader, apparently. Hey, thank you to everyone who took the time to email. This show is literally not possible without you. Tried to get a lot of them in. Hopefully I wasn't speaking a mile a minute, but I tried to speed through it so I could get everybody in. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Monday's show, we'll recap that Kings-Kraken game from Saturday and preview that night's Kings-Penguins game as LA returns home. Tuesday, we'll recap that Kings-Penguins game and probably have a special guest, maybe Carlin Baith. I've been talking to her. She's looking to join us here in the near future. Then on Wednesday, we'll preview Panthers, Kings, and then Thursday recap that game, and then Friday have another Kings fan feedback show. So there's your show's schedule for next week. If you want to get an email in on the fan feedback show, email address lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You can always leave your comments in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube as well. We'd love you to stay interactive with the show. Social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, we are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. And as always, go Kings go.